Go ahead, Em.
So I'm starting to hear the administration talk about gas prices. A way to speed up the lowering of gas prices is speed up the transition to those clean energy. Gas prices have risen month over month, every month since the president's been in office. So is the feeling then from the president that the American people just have to wait till 2030 when the president had set his goal for zero emissions, or for half cars being sold with zero emissions?
No, that's never been our theory or our belief. I would say that since President Putin began his military buildup on Ukrainian borders, the price of gas at the pump in America has gone up 75 cents, which is significant, of course. There's widespread consensus that the sharp run-up of energy prices since January was caused by the building of Putin's troops at Ukraine's border. The reality, as we know, is that Russia is the world's third largest oil producer, and energy supply disruptions and market volatility are a result of his aggression. Don't take my word for that. There have been a number of assessments. Back in January, Fed Chair Powell warned that there was a risk to our economy based on, quote, what's going on in Eastern Europe. In early February, JP Morgan analysts projected that disruptions of oil flows from Russia could push oil prices to $120 per barrel, which is what has happened. Our approach has always been twofold. One, we need to ensure the supply meets the demand out there in the marketplace. There's a couple of ways to do that. Obviously, we're engaging with big global oil producers around the world to meet that demand. But there are also, as we've talked about a few times in here, 9,000 unused oil leases that oil companies could certainly tap into, and we've encouraged them to do that. So that's certainly a way to address.
But the price of gas on February 14th was at a highest level since 2014. So it was already at an elevated level. I want to ask you...
And the buildup of troops was even before that.
I want to ask you about tomorrow. We're going to get a CPI inflation number that's expected to be pretty big. It's supposed to rise from the 7.5% that it was month over month. So gas prices are part of that. I want to know what specifically the administration has done, they've been working on, that has worked to bring down inflation.
Well, I would say first, because well, we don't have the data at this point yet, but as we're looking ahead, we certainly assess that that we expect to see a high headline headline inflation in tomorrow's February inflation data. A key reason, as you touched on, are energy prices. We've seen the price of gas increase, as I noted, 75 cents since the beginning of the year as Putin built up his military near Ukraine and took increasingly aggressive measures that were felt in the markets. We also expect some increases in pandemic-affected sectors given our strong recovery from Omicron in February. That's a positive sign for our economy and for Americans who are going out again, traveling, going to restaurants, and getting back to normal. And we also expect to see continued moderation in used car prices. So that's what our prediction or our assessment is at this point in time. In terms of steps we have taken to address inflation,
What has worked?
What has worked?
So October 13th is when you announced the port initiative.
Yeah.
What specifically can you point to that has worked to bring down inflation?
Well, there are a number of steps we've taken. If you compare month to month, we've seen inflationary pressure or inflationary numbers go down month to month, even as we looked at the year-to-year numbers go up, which we entirely predicted. One, we've taken steps to address bottlenecks in the supply chain, to reduce those bottlenecks. Those are steps we've taken not just since October, but since earlier this year. There's no question that we've seen impacts as it relates to getting goods and supplies out to the American public. We've also taken steps to address what we see as shortages and issues in the semiconductor space. I just opened this briefing by pressing for the passing of the competitiveness of legislation that the president would love to sign into law, because we know that one of the big pressures is, of course, from the car and manufacturing sector, or the car sector. And then third, we know that because of the pressures on the energy sector, that has been an area where we've continued to have an impact on inflationary pressure. We believe in the last few months that has been because of President Putin's invasion of Ukraine. But as I've noted, there are a number of steps working to address that. Why don't you go ahead in the yellow?